Shrimadbhagavatam, Divine Grace, Founder of ISKCON, Abhay Charanadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Granthara Shrimadbhagavatam Ki Their Most Merciful Lordship Shri Shri Radhakunja Bihari Ki Shri Jagannath, Shri Baladev, Maya Subhadra Ki Shri Nathanji, Shri Balagopal Ki Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Nitai Go Prem. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Lord's feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Wow. Yesterday, I was thinking this was the purport of this statement being made. Those who saw him, speaking about Krishna, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, attained their original forms after death.
What does that mean?
Everybody that saw Krishna went back to their original form. Well, no, it doesn't mean they didn't die. It means that they left their body. When they did leave their bodies, they went back to their original form. We're reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 40. Text 40. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 40. The chapter is entitled The Passing Away of Bhishma Dev. Text 40. Lalita, Gati, Vilasa, Vaiguhasa, Lalita Gati Vilasha Valguhasa, Pranaya, Nirikshana, Kalpitoram Manaha, Pranaya, Nirikshana, Kalpitoram Mana, Krita, Manu, Krita, Vatya, Unmadanda, Krita Manu, Krita Vatya, Unnamandaha, Prakritin, Agan, Kila, Yasya, Gopa Vadva, Prakritim Agan Kila Yasya Gopa Vadva, Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa, Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitor Mana, Krita Manu Krita Vatya Unmadana Da, Prakritim Agan Kila Yasya Gopa Vadva, Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhas, Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumana, Krita Manu Krita Vatya Unmadanda, Prakritim Aga Kila Yasya Gopa Vadva, Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa, Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumana, Krita Manu Krita Vatya Unmadana, Prakritim Agan Kila Vyasya Gopa Vadva,
Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa,
Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa, Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitormana,
Krita Manu Krita Vatya Unmadandha,
Krita Manu Krita Vatya Unmadanda,
Prakritim Agan Kila Yasya Gopa Vadva,
Prakritim Agan Kila Yasya Gopa Vadva, Lalita Gati Vilasa Valgasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumana Kritamanu Krita Vatya Unmatanda Prakritim Magan Kila Yasya Gopavadva
Lalita Gata Vilasa Gavudhasha
Valita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa
Pranaya Nirikasana Kalpitorumana
Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumana
Kritam Anu Ritavatya Umadanaha
Krita Manu Krita Vatya Unmadadanda
Kritim Agan Kila Vasya Gopi Vadhava
Prakritim Agan Kila Yasya Gopavadva Lalita attractive Gati movements Vilasa fascinating acts Valguhasa sweet smiling Pranaya loving Nirikshana looking upon Kalpita mentality Irumana highly glorified Kritamanu Kritavatya in the act of copying the movements Unmada Anda gone mad in ecstasy Prakritim characteristics Agan underwent Kila certainly Yasya whose Gopavadva the cowherd damsels Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pratnaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumana Kritamanu Krita Vatya Unmadanda Prakritim Magan Kila Yasya Gopavadva. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Charnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Vrajadam, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after His disappearance from the rasa dance. Please repeat. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna.
Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna,
whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Vrajadam, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord.
The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord
after His disappearance from the rasa dance. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Vrajadam, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after His disappearance from the rasa dance. Purport by His Divine Grace of Charnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. By intense ecstasy in loving service, the damsels of Vrajabhumi attained qualitative oneness with the Lord by dancing with Him on an equal level, embracing Him in nuptial love, smiling at Him in joke, and looking at Him with a loving attitude. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhishmadev, But the relation of the gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. By the grace of the Lord, Arjuna was fortunate enough to have the fraternal service of the Lord as chariot driver. But the Lord did not award Arjuna with equal strength. The gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the last stage of his life. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. And therefore Bhishma Dev has not only glorified the acts of Arjuna, his immediate object of attraction, but has also remembered the gopis who were endowed with unrivaled opportunities by rendering loving service to the Lord. The gopis' equality with the Lord should never be misunderstood to be like the Sayajya, liberation of the impersonalists. The equality is one of perfect ecstasy, where the differential conception is completely eradicated for the interest of the lover and the beloved become identical. Om Jnana Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshushanmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Every single verse here is bringing out a revelation, various aspects of love for Krishna. And then, see, we've gone from one aspect that Bhishma Dev, Grandfather Bhishma Dev, was so much overwhelmed by the appearance of Krishna's face on the battlefield when he was willing to break his own vow, to take up a weapon in his hand, to protect Arjuna from Grandfather Bhishma. And Grandfather Bhishma was expressing his desire to see that face of the Lord, the expression he would make. And comment was being made then about how this particular form of Krishna would give him a particular form of liberation. But see, here we have him recognizing specifically the unique position the gopis have with Krishna. So this is very rare indeed. As we can see on this battlefield, how many people were gathered there. And among them, how many of them had realized that this relationship that the gopis were having with Krishna was that the purest attainable in the entire universe. And this position that the gopis are having, when it is recognized by a soul as elevated as Grandfather Bhishma, we can know he's only playing this as a role, as a part in a play, so to speak. And then when he returns to his original Svarup, he will be again with Krishna. In the spiritual world, he will gain his original position. This is what we are being brought to. In the bodies we are entrapped by. I think it was either last class or the class before, I was making mention how the mind can be looked at as more or less unlimited, right? The consciousness has the ability to conceive of things in the world that it has seen and maybe things it has not seen, even in this particular lifespan. However, I've come to realize Lord Brahma has 4 heads. He can perform activities with those 4 heads that we, having 1 head, cannot perform with. This as an example. While we're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we are engaging the mouth. And we were having tulsi beads in our hands. We're engaging the sense of feeling also. We're engaging the ears. If we're seeing Krishna, if we're sitting before the deity of Krishna, we're engaging the eyes. So the mind also can be engaged in that request to Krishna, please engage me in your loving devotional service, which might be looked at as a prayer. But you can also use the mind to be able to chant a mantra. While you can be chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and be chanting Sri Ishopanishad, or you can be chanting Chaitanya Panchatattva mantra. But try to chant something above and beyond that with your mind. So you might be chanting with your mouth and chanting with your mind. Now try to chant again another verse. This mind is limited in that way. Unless, and this is a key to the false ego, to breaking the false ego. When we see ourselves in the third person, objectively looking at a chorus of people that themselves all have individual voices to be singing, then the soul, in that single-minded solitary state, by removing itself from its own body, okay? Because we're not these bodies. So in order to be properly situated in the self, we have to see the self for what it really is. And that means we are something other than these bodies. So then these bodies are limiting us to the capacities, the mind, to the mind's capacity to be able to facilitate the desires the soul has to create, to imagine, to conceive, to perceptualize, using the energy of the mind to do that. But I know I have limitations, and I can't chant more than one mantra at a time in my mind. See, Lord Brahma is doing that. Having 4 mouths, Samaveda, Yajurveda, Tharvaveda.
Is that what allows his consciousness to be so highly elevated?
Yeah. See, and we have evidence of direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya praying to Krishna to have more mouths, to be able to glorify Krishna in that many ways. Because the glorification of Krishna becomes such a satisfying experience. So you want to be able to do more and more and more of it. And that's what all these verses of praise of Krishna, all these scriptures, ultimately are bringing us to the perfection of the realization of who it is we are worshiping. How powerful, how great, how glorious it is to be able to be in the presence of the Supreme Person, the one and only, above all living forms of life that there is. This is Krishna. And we have this privilege being given to us. So even though we can recognize that we do have limitations, Krishna is nevertheless giving us the ability to take part in activities with as much, accrediting us with as much benefit as beyond our imaginations. How would we ever think of getting the benefit of giving in charity the equivalent of the entire planet? Does anybody ever think they could have the ability of gaining that kind of credit with God? That's what's being revealed to us through these scriptures and through the practice of simply fasting at particular times appointed. So this goes beyond our imagination, which another aspect. See, if we do have 4 heads, then of course we can do these things. But with the limited heads we do have, the limited head we have, Krishna doesn't enable us to conceive even within that greater things than we would otherwise be conceiving of. And keeping us in that consciousness of Krishna, then we are constantly free from the thoughts that people are battling with their minds with. People who are unconvinced of the absolute truth still have the unsettling feeling and dissatisfaction of being unfulfilled. Wouldn't you feel that way if you feel as though you're still having to find the absolute? Then there would be a longing for it. Constant nagging. Gotta find it. Because this life is actually created for us to do just exactly that. And yet, the majority of people we come in contact with in the outside world on a regular daily basis are not involved with that process whatsoever. Have no desire, no leanings, until you come into their presence and make the suggestion. You ever think about God? You ever think about things that could be pure in life, or how much better this place could be if everybody loved everybody? We were all living in that environment of pure love and hope for the future that it can only get better. And that's Krishna consciousness. Because there, even in the spiritual realm, it is explained that it is constantly expanding. There is no end. I can contain that conception in my mind. My mind does have limitations. But as we're being instructed, it is greater than we can perceive with the mind. Wow. That should be impetus for us to continue pursuing, to want to know more and more every day. Every day there is a experience to be experienced above and beyond the greatest experience we had yesterday. An experience of transcendence, an experience of real love that is meant to be that guiding factor in our life. It gives us a vision for everyone, that puts in our heart the care and love and desire to fulfill the responsibilities we have here as human beings, and to perform activities that will be beneficial for everyone by being beneficial, by being requested by the Supreme Person. He says, if you do this for me, then it will be of benefit to everyone. So simply by taking part in those simple daily activities that we do, everybody has to eat. Everybody takes part in some form of association with others. And if that is based upon truth, upon solid foundation of the purity and the wholeness and the completeness of love itself, it will be that motivating factor that drives us to long for that day when we will leave these bodies. Not looking forward in fear for the day we will die. You're not going to die. You are not going to die. You're not going to die. We got to get this through our skulls.
Yeah, right. I tell everybody that all the time.
We've got hold now on the truth, the absolute truth that is eternal, that is leading us and guiding us to that eternal position of servitorship that we can find. Now, I was realizing the other day, Bhaktivinoda's vision of Lord Chaitanya This is not just an imagined dream that he had. This is the true position of Lord Chaitanya, taking the position of a server, of a servant to all humanity. He came to serve that humanity might find in him absolute truth and absolute perfection of love. And as such now, those who in the universe have controlling powers above and beyond what we can even think of. This position Indra has, he's regulating planetary systems, living entities, and giving guidance for societies to be established by his laws and precepts that keeps heaven and in heavenly environment. But he, having such regulatory control over planets of the universe, nevertheless recognizes the superiority of Lord Chaitanya. We look at this position of servitorship that he is revealing in its perfection, puts him in a place to be worshipped by everyone in the universe. Now, but this fact is being hidden. He doesn't want to be thought of as a king or a ruler like that. He wants us to recognize the position of servant for us to be able to experience what he saw Shrimati Radharani experiencing by service to him, which is why he took residence here, to be able himself to be able to experience that pleasure of the service, that the soul is able to have the privilege of being able to take part in. With all these activities, preparing foods that we would normally do for ourselves, yet getting an eternal benefit for doing it. Imagine that. Do we think of the great benefit we get when we prepare a meal that our stomachs will feel right for the moment, and for maybe the rest of the day or so, depending on how late we're eating at night? But what recipe is there that anyone can give you that by the preparation of this foodstuff, you're going to get eternal benefit with God?
Right.
Right. That's in the recipe. Every single recipe in the kitchen of Krishna's kitchen, Shrimati Radharani's kitchen, has added with it an ingredient that assures the participant who puts that ingredient in that preparation to be getting eternal benefit with Krishna himself, the Supreme Person himself. Wow. That's amazing. Because what Krishna says about food normally, what people are preparing for themselves, Krishna says all this food that people are preparing, thinking it is their own, to prepare to take from the earth, the Mother Earth that they're taking it from as thieves, and preparing it for themselves, they're eating sin. And they're digging the grave that they will have to be put into over and over and over again, because they are eating these things that are not theirs to eat. And against the laws of God, they're eating things, taking abominable things, even those that are offering thankfulness for the ability to kill the cow, for the ability to slaughter their mother. This is the way thankfulness is being looked at. We have dominion over the animals. We have dominion over the earth. But that dominion carries with it responsibility and a proper viewpoint of how God wants all those resources to be used, of how God wants our lives to be used and dedicated, and to what precepts we should dedicate our lives to. And this is the way our planet will be made into that heavenly dwelling. by developing those characteristics and the mentality of one who is happy to want to serve, to be a servant. And not with expectation of anything reward, because the service itself, this is ecstatic. It's talking about, well, how does it say that? Grandfather Bhishma was in this ecstasy of bliss. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Vrajadam, the gopis. Now here's one thing. How can we talk about this most highly elevated love without the concept of it moving through our minds? And this is the means Krishna has when he plays his flute. Because the love that he is himself, that comes out of the flute itself. So that flute is having love itself pour through its entire body. Can you imagine that? We don't normally, in the form of life we're taking part in, see a flute as a living being. Because our own experience here is that we've never seen a flute talk or when I was a kid, when I was a kid, you know, I used to remember my mother making a comment about a musician. He could make that thing talk, you know. He'd make that harmonica talk. And that's what it is with the flute. So the flute, having gained love for Krishna to the extent that it can have contact with Krishna's own lips when he is playing this most attractive sound. Love itself playing through this flute can manifest as nothing else but love. Love has no way of disguising itself from a pure devotee. Even though love is disguised from the rest of the world. And we know that because they're looking for love. And what do they say? Looking for love in all the wrong places. Exactly right. Where they go for fun. Where they go for happiness. Where they go to enjoy. That is their God. That is what they have made their God to be. So, in the same way as devotees, all these aspects of life that would normally be mundane in our consciousness, in our minds, in our friendly relationships with one another, a plate of food is nothing more than garbage tomorrow after it's passed out of the body. But with association with love, then, this that we take into the body is even a transcendental way for God himself to be able to create the kinds of people he wants us to be. By changing the consciousness, by allowing the consciousness of the cook to be affecting the mind of the people who take what the cook has prepared. So love, making an offering to love, reciprocates by looking with love at that which has been offered with love, turns that into absolute love, gives the experience of those who partake in that love, the experience of love. This is what we should be swimming in love.
All you need is love.
All you need is love. Who said that? That was the Beatles said that.
George.
Yeah. We got it. I'm telling you, we got it.
Right.
Love is the way, the truth, and the life. Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge, which eternally gives us an experience of bliss. Your best friends with the greatest soul there is, with the greatest being there is. Krishna's not a soul. But the soul is the only substance we know of that is coming from Krishna, that has the likeness of Krishna. So that's what self-realized is soul-realized. So when they say got soul, everybody's got soul, but we have to know what it is. And knowing that soul then gives us understanding of the nature of Krishna. He wants us to be happy, to know what kind of happiness he's having. If we could be happy in this miserable place, as the place is where death is dwelling, then how much greater that happiness will be, removed entirely from death itself, removed entirely from the minimalization that we've been forced into. We're living in a microscopic place from reality, from where we came, from the swarup we were once in. We're living in a microscopic reality.
Right.
But our minds don't have to be contained by the minuscule. See, there's a difference between petty thought and universal thought. But Krishna consciousness is beyond universal. Beyond universal. If we can't conceive, which is why I think it would be beneficial for us to study the universe through the lens we have, the means we have with these telescopes, to every day remind us this that we're seeing as the greatest possible to see with these eyes is microscopic. We don't have the ability to see, even though we believe ourselves to be seeing everything in this world, enabling us to have the ability to see. Still, we're blind men. Without the ability to see eternal, the very substance we're made of. Can we see that? We don't even know what we're made of. How little we know about life itself. When we put it in this perspective towards looking at it from having come from God, how little we know about our past relationship with God and that which he has known about us. Every single detail there is has been recorded. We're looking at recordings as something that rejuvenates us. We see ourselves from the past and it kind of enlivens us, or gives us the ability to correct, make corrections, look at ourselves objectively and say, oh my God, that's weird, I shouldn't do that. Like right now I'm fiddling with my fingers and it's like a nervous twitch or something. Our bodies go through automatic reflexes. And so if we have conditioning, spiritual conditioning, now, we know what material conditioning has given us. The belief that working hard produces certain results and all these things. Now we got to realize the spiritual reality. What we have to do with it, what part we play in it. As every form of life does. Every form of life that there is. I don't know if there was ever a time in which there was no living entities in the body of either waiting to be manifest inside the body of Mahavishnu for the manifestation of the material world. See, everything that doesn't make it back to Godhead eventually gets sucked back into the body of Mahavishnu. And this seems to be an endless cycle. And just how many there are, how many souls, is just inconceivable to the mind. And now we can see, just look at the world we're living in. Like Krishna points out, how few people there are actually interested in finding what the self is, in finding what the soul is, in finding what the nature of God is, and the difference between God and the self, and the living entity, and how small we are in comparison, and how limited our abilities are in comparison.
Each experiences.
Each experience.
Yeah, on the hierarchy of needs, self-realization.
Yeah.
Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Experiences.
The hierarchy of needs, the experience of God, right? And the presence of God, yeah. Hierarchy of needs. So if they make that the most important thing every day, at the end, Krishna is promising he's going to come on Garuda and bring us back. And that will mean we will experience with Krishna on that ride back to Godhead something beyond our imaginations. I try to envision it every day in my mind, practically speaking. I'm envisioning that ride out of this universe. Because Krishna will expand. And that'll be a ride of rides. Elon Musk couldn't come up with a flying machine that could make the equivalent of that ride with Garuda through the universe. Probably, I don't know, see, this is a very tiny place for Krishna. That ride could happen in a moment. He could go from here to there faster than the mind, it is explained. Krishna travels faster than the mind. Wow. Because I can be there right now. My mind in a second, I can fly to Vaikuntha, in a second. Krishna goes there faster than that. But of course, he never leaves there. So he's already there anyway. He's there before you can get there.
There before that.
Yeah, he never leaves. So he has a bit of an advantage over us. But it's great that the one with all the advantages is willing to share those advantages with us. That's Krishna. We are the most fortunate to have the greatest friend there is. To have the greatest friend, the most powerful friend, the most loving person. Wow. That's the goal of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
To find love in its completeness. In its completeness. Any comments, any questions, any realizations anybody would like to share?
When you said swimming in the love about it, I just remembered the Tulsi Aarti translation at last, like we'll be having, may I always swim in the love of Sri Radha and Govinda.
Yeah, Krishna. In Vrindavan, I think it's about once a year when they have, is it Holi? You know this Holi that that devotees celebrate? We didn't used to celebrate it, but
Colors, festival of colors.
was being outlawed in one country. I don't know what the name of this country was. Anybody participating in it would be beheaded, would be killed. Such a wonderful, beautiful celebration of life itself. And they want to outlaw it to the extent that if you want to take part in it, you're worthy of death.
What is the reason?
Killed. I have no idea. They probably concoct that it's some demon worship or something, that it's not for God, it's not of God. That's the fanaticism that builds up in the minds of people who believe they are on the absolute truth. And they have to wipe everything else out. When in fact, they are themselves the very imitation they are accusing others of being. The same way not being able for the original settlers from the European countries coming here, not being able to recognize the civility that was being practiced and experienced by people who were on this continent who, because of their primitive ways, being primitive and simple in life is not a disqualification for being able to know what love is. In love is the qualification for entering into the kingdom of God by all standards set forth by reasonable people in cultures that are experiencing with one another exchanges that enable them to experience family, society, nation, planet, and heaven. Heaven's supposed to be here on this planet. We should be making it into that. With the ability God gives us, by practicing his precepts, it turns this planet into a heavenly planet. If we understand the meaning of God's will on earth to be done, then we would take into consideration the fact that this is his planet, and if he wanted it destroyed, he wouldn't have made it. He'd have to put it here to begin with. All these acts we are engaging in against each other in our armies and our buildup of military power is a destructive force against what God has created as a means or a portal to get back to the place where there is no destruction of anything, no destruction in the spiritual world. Everything is of an eternal nature. So when we try to destroy things, it is completely contradictory to the nature of everything in the spiritual world. Nothing there can be destroyed. Any questions? Realization? John. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam, Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai.
Oh, Supreme.